From underneath the mango tree, it's the DigiGods. Please welcome two guys you do not want to see emerge from the ocean, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
I can absolutely confirm that. I've seen Mark emerge from the ocean, and it is not a pretty sight. It is ugly as can be. Corey, who sent that in to us?
That was sent in by Makoto Tsukishima, who did once see Wade and Mark emerge from the ocean and was never the same.
Yes, very true. Makoto, thank you. There is a man from Japan who is unafraid to make Japanese monster movie references, and I love that. That is awesome. So thank you, Makoto. That was a great intro. So a few things left over from last week.
Wait! What are you doing?
What?
We have a very special person sitting next to us.
Look at that. Well, hello there, guest person.
Hello, DigiGods. Hello, DigiGods audience. It's me in the same room with Mark. Usually I'm here because Mark is not. This may, in fact, rip a hole in the time-space continuum, which will be interesting because that's why I'm here to talk about time travel movies.
That is, in fact, so this is our special guest, Tim Cogshell. Tim, who has been a colleague and friend of ours and especially of this podcast for many, many years. Tim, thank you for being here. We are actually, we're helping Tim out a little bit, too. Tim, what are your ulterior motives here today?
So I'm doing this little gig over on our radio station, KPCC 89.3, where Wade and I do share duties on Film Week. And occasionally I do a little work for John Raby's Off-Ramp program, where I talk about film and culture and other crap. A few weeks ago, I talked about time travel movies. And I didn't get a chance to talk about everything that I want to talk about, and we don't really talk about TV on that show, so I want to talk about some really neat time travel episodes, so the X-Files and things like that. So we're going to talk a little time travel movie today. That's what we're going to do.
Bravo. A lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
I'm not looking forward to it.
You're not looking forward
Tim's
to it?
taking time away from me.
Okay, well.
My damn show.
All right, fine. So
charge
be
him.
it. All righty.
But he is talking about time travel. May I just say that if one of the time travel movies is like The Terminator or Star Trek, I'm going to shoot you both. There's way more stuff out there. No, like if your favorite time travel movie ever is like either a Terminator or a Star Trek movie, I'm just saying it's going to be lame because there's been too many of them.
Can I talk about like a time travel episode of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea or something?
Well, yeah, because it's not Star Trek or Terminator, because that's the low-hanging fruit of time travel movies and TV shows. Am I right, Tim Cogshell?
You are absolutely right, which is why I did not talk about them in that episode of John Raby's Off-Ramp. Did not mention the Terminator films at all.
I like this Tim guy. I like the cut of his jib.
All right, fair enough. So let me hit a couple of anime titles that I did not get to last week real quickly, just to make sure everybody is on board and aware that these are out there. Black Butler, super cool artwork, super cool animation. These are all Funimation titles, by the way. This is the latest batch of Funimation, which is just always amazing. With all due respect to everybody else that releases stuff on anime, Funimation really just gets the mother load of these titles. So, Black Butler, really, really cool kind of occulty mood anime series. This is the Book of Circus, and this is a Blu-ray and DVD combo pack from the Aniplex line, which is just really, really terrific. And then we've also got Kamisama Kiss Season 2. This is basically one of those alternate fantasy world shows. Takes place in the in one of those kind of Lord of the Ringsy environments. Not quite human characters, a little bit mythological, gods and demons and spirits and all that kind of stuff. That's a fun show. Much more hardcore is Garo, the animation, Season 1, Part 1. These are 12 episodes on a Blu-ray and DVD combo pack of a really, really rather extraordinarily creative but violent fantasy series that I don't want to put this into that giant robot and Gundam suit classification, but it's kind of like a fantasy spin on that, and demons and monsters and strange armor-covered knights and things of that sort. It's kind of like cyberpunk fantasy in a way. Maybe the best way that I could do it. But the golden armor that is animated here is rather extraordinary. It reminds me a little bit of the way that the armor was shot in Excalibur. You guys remember the way the armor was shot in Excalibur by Alex Thompson?
It's just with all that glittering, it's almost like aluminum.
Yeah, it was like glowing almost. They somehow, without CGI, got this like golden green glow out of it. Anyway, there's a lot of that. There's that kind of vibe here going. Pretty cool. Rage of Bahamut Genesis. Also pretty violent, but also really, really well animated. A bounty hunter adventure, really pretty cool. If you like, that kind of thing. Fairy Tale on Blu-ray and DVD. This is the 20th volume of this thing that just will not go away. TAIL. It's a fun series, but man, I'm checked out at this point. I've seen maybe 30 or 40 episodes, and that's enough for me. So some people are a lot more hardcore. 20 sets. This thing just has a following that will not stop. Season 1 of Shonen Hollywood, Holly Stage for $49. One of these, this is more in the youth sector again, those youth-oriented anime series, which I don't particularly really get or enjoy. This is a bunch of guys as opposed to a bunch of girls for a change, looking to become a supergroup, and it's not really. I don't know why they put this stuff in anime, but there's a following for it, so have at it. Gonna be the Twin Tail. Why do they have titles like this? Very, very strange. Female superheroes, awfully cute, cool outfits. They all go to high school. It's that whole scene. There's a lot of that in anime. They, they're teen, they're cute, they got big eyes, big heads, and they're heroic. Rock on. Let's see. And then Psycho Pass. This is another popular series. Psycho Pass the movie on a Blu-ray, DVD, and Ultraviolet set. The Ultraviolet is a relatively new advent for Funimation. So if you are an Ultraviolet fan, just know you are able now to begin adding Funimation anime titles to your Ultraviolet library. Psycho Pass is a good one. This is a really, really cool, well-animated, very intelligently written science fiction series. Let's see, the last couple here. Boy and the Beast, Blu-ray, DVD, and Ultraviolet set. This is kind of old school. A lot of cool kind of fantasy samurai stuff going on in this one. A little bit of cyberpunk, all kind of blended together in this really, really cool alternate universe. That's a lot of fun. And then lastly, also with Ultraviolet is The Girl Who Leapt Through Time from the amazing animator Mamoru Hosoda, which is really, really quite a wonderful story. This is one of those youth things again, but it's one that I find actually very well written and beautifully kind of put together about a girl who discovers that she has the ability to leap backward in time. Tim Koshel.
Interesting.
There's your time travel thing. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time.
And really cute outfit.
And cute outfit, the schoolgirl thing that is so fetishized internationally. But yeah, so
at my house.
But anyway, so she can time travel, and that the way that's juxtaposed over the all these youth issues that are always kind of these teen issues that are always at the center of these things. Very, very nicely done. So that is our anime from Funimation for this week. Mark, we had a very interesting listener mail that we didn't have time to get to last week. And you may have a comment on this because you and I have both been to Cannes.
Correct.
And Chevelle Dixon wrote us an email and said, I had followed the Fuhrer over the Cannes Film Festival this year, and I had
You followed Hitler?
No. Chevelle Dixon is not a
Why is Chevelle Dixon following Hitler? All the way to the south of France. Is he not dead? He's hiding out in the south of France?
Okay. He's in Brazil. I had followed the furor over the Cannes Film Festival this year, and I had not seen so much dislike for the Palm winner in a while. What past Palm winners have had this much dislike to your memory? Keep up the good work. So thank you, Chevelle, for really a good question. Mark, in your years at Cannes, was there any outcry or uproar over the Palm winner?
Well, Fahrenheit 9/11.
Which, see, that year I thought that Old Boy really should have been the winner, which they gave the runner-up award.
Right, but that's something where, that one fell right on that political divide. right? It was incendiary. Everyone was talking about it. If you're of this political stripe, you thought it was Gone with the Wind. If you were of the other political stripe, you hated it on its face.
Yeah.
And that was the one that I thought, wow, that was really a bold stroke.
It's interesting. Because I went back and I was like, well, it's hard for me to speak to a lot of the earlier Palm winners. If you go back into 50s, 60s, even the 70s, I want to sort of see if there was anything that I had missed. And since I've been following the Palme d'Or, which is pretty much since about 1980, that's when I really started following it. But there have been quite a few that are really kind of incredibly disliked. The biggest one was Under the Son of Satan, when Maurice Pialat won for Under the Son of Satan, starring Gérard Depardieu. That was a big deal. Now, that's coming out on Blu-ray, and we're going to be talking about that at some point very soon. But that film was booed at its first screening. And Pialat, very successful, very popular French filmmaker, now deceased, but that was booed at its first screening. And when it went on to win, people were, for whatever reason, in an uproar. I don't remember why people hated it so much, but they really hated it. And when Pialat went up to accept and said, cinema is dead, that just added to everything. That just made everybody really, really pissed off. So Under the Son of Satan is probably the most controversial and disliked of all of those. There was one in the mid-1970s called Keeper of Promises, an Algerian film, not very popular, but I wouldn't say it was hated. And last year, Jacques Audiard's Dupin was not particularly liked.
That was not liked.
It was not liked. People thought that was weak sauce. They kind of felt like, okay, and that's when this disconnect. Like the Cannes equivalent of Oscars So White is you're not picking what the critics like. Like there's this disconnect between the jury and the critics, and people are like, why is it? And they even ask the Coen brothers, they're like, why did we pick it? Because we're not film critics.
I'm looking at Bluest to Warmest Color in 2013. People liked that movie, but there were also all kinds of issues to do with the actors and what the director made them do, and it's not that people didn't like it. And White Ribbon, that was another one that put people off in a certain way.
It did. That was certainly a controversial one as well. And I remember in 97 when I was there.
Well, that was a tie that year, wasn't it?
That was a tie, but it was a tie between The Taste of Cherry,
which everyone loved.
No, nobody loved Taste of Cherry.
Everyone loved one and didn't love the other, right?
No, everybody thought they were both boring.
Okay.
Taste of Cherry was the Kiarostami film, and The Eel was the Imamura film. Well, the Taste of Cherry people thought was fine, and The Eel everybody thought was boring. But by and large, there were a lot of really interesting films in the competition, and people are like, so you didn't just give it to one boring, undeserving movie, you gave it to two boring, undeserving movies? You couldn't figure out which one was like the put you to sleep better. What's the issue? But no one hated those films per se. And I would say this year the Ken Loach film, nobody really hated it. People
hated Dancer in the Dark.
Oh, they did hate Dancer in the Dark.
Dancer in the Dark.
They did. You're right.
I didn't, but people did.
Yeah, no, that's it. But because they hate Von Trier, they think Lars is out of his mind. But this year, people didn't hate the Ken Loach film. I think they just felt, wait a minute, there are like 4 or 5 really amazing movies that you gave nothing to, including that German film, which is supposed to be so amazing that I'm really looking forward to. Got nothing. And that reminded me then, I was like, okay, so 94, there was another really interesting year. In 94, this was the thing that I remember really well about 94. Everybody was already rooting for Kieslowski before the festival even began, because he had made 2 of his films in the Three Colors trilogy, Blue and White. Blue had won the Berlin Film Festival. White had won Venice. Here he was taking Red to the Cannes Film Festival. It's like, he's going to be the first filmmaker ever to win the Cripple Crown. He's going to win the Cripple Crown of film festivals, and he's going to do it at Cannes, and he's going to do it through 3 films in the single trilogy in successive years. It's going to be poetry. It's going to be like a dream, a fantasy come true. It's going to be amazing, the great Krzysztof Kieslowski. And everyone saw Red at the press screening, and I remember people walking out with tears in their eyes, right? And just saying, that's it. It's going to happen. It's fate. It's done. It's a foregone conclusion. It's such a wonderful movie. How can you not do it to this amazing film? And it's in French, of all things. And then you're sitting there and you're watching them give out the awards, and then you start thinking, you're like, wait a minute.
Jury president is
Clint Eastwood. And you're thinking, is Clint Eastwood really going to be down with Kieslowski? Like all the rest of us are, but is Clint going to be down with Kieslowski?
Because in order for it to win the Palme d'Or, the president has to.
The president can hold rest of the jury, completely hijack the process and hold the rest of the jury hostage and say, this is what the Palme d'Or is going to. You can give awards to anything else, but they have to agree on the other awards. There has to be consensus, but the president can really twist the arm for the winner. And that's when I started to get worried. And I was like, uh-oh, is Clint going to be down with Kieslowski? And suddenly it comes to, and Clint goes, and the palm door, and I remember him doing with the P. The P really popped. He goes, and the palm door, in that Clint Eastwood way, and the palm door goes to Pulp Fiction. And then the next shot on the big, because I'm looking in the, you know how it is at Cannes. You sit in the adjacent theater. You're in it's all going on in the Lumiere, right? And then next door, the press sits in the Debussy and watches on a big projection screen like everybody else in the world. And suddenly there's Tarantino. He stands up. He's high-fiving Lawrence Bender. And everyone was in a state of shock. And we just thought, are you kidding me? Kieslowski got nothing? Not a jury? Not a grand jury? Nothing? You walk away empty-handed? What happened in that jury room? And you could tell the jury was angry. Catherine Deneuve was like the vice president of the jury, and you could tell the jury was just angry. They were furious. And Tarantino goes up to accept his Palme d'Or, and some woman up in the rafters is screaming, Pulp Fiction is S, right? She's screaming, cursing at him. It's on the DVD. It's on the extras. You can see this on the extras. And she's screaming, Pulp Fiction is Pulp Fiction is and she's screaming this. And Tarantino laughs, and he throws her the middle finger, and I thought, this would never happen at the Oscars. No. And that was that. And that, to me, was maybe the most incendiary palm winner I ever saw. But, so yeah.
Why do you think they didn't give Rouge one of the other awards? Do you think that was like a protest amongst? Was that the jury saying we will not give you that window, Clint?
I have a feeling that it wound up being, and rumors have leaked out since that was a really contentious deliberation, that Clint was absolutely dead set on Pulp Fiction winning it. He was really impressed by the film. He wanted that to get the top award and kind of didn't care what got anything else. And then I think everybody else had their own little favorites. And there may have been if you had a consensus vote on a normal jury where people had to sort of agree on everything and they were congenial and didn't argue, I think Kieslowski would have taken at least a jury prize. But I think the feeling was everybody had their own pet favorites. And it probably wound up being the worst kind of horse trading. It's like, okay, fine, we'll give Best Actor to your guy as long as we give Best Actress to mine. Okay, fine, you? Okay, fine, you get your movie, And I think it probably got really bitchy in the final minutes. And Clint was probably sitting in the corner reading a newspaper saying, just do whatever you want. I don't care. Just give it to Pulp Fiction. I get Pulp Fiction. You get whatever you want. And that's kind of what the rumor was, that wound up being a pretty nasty jury deliberation.
The reason it matters is because it matters, of course. Yeah. These things make careers.
Yeah.
That win made a career.
It made a career. And Kieslowski died about 3 years later.
Yeah.
So
not that killed him.
No. It might have. We don't know. In any case, thank you, Chevelle. Really good question. And so, shall we carry on to Tim? Do you want to jump into your thing?
Do you want to talk about some time travel movies for a second?
Let's talk about some time travel.
All right,
we
can talk time travel movies for a second. So I'm on the show, and you do radio, terrestrial radio, and you actually only have the amount of time that you have.
Yeah.
And there were a whole bunch of time travel movies and things that I wanted to talk about that I didn't get a chance to talk about on the show. And I know you have your favorites, Wade, so I'm going to let you chime in here, too. One of the films that I really, really love in this genre is Somewhere in Time, 1980.
Likewise.
Young. Yes, that's right. Young Christopher Reeves and Jane Seymour, ridiculous. It's just an incredibly romantic show. And I don't know if you'll get a chance to do this, Wade, but a little bit of the John Barry score, for that film would go well right about here. Okay, that's enough.
Oh, I'm going to let it ride for a little while. I'm going to let it ride. Why not? So this beautiful John Barry music that we have going in the background now.
And this is an absolutely beautiful movie. And if people haven't seen it, it's a chance to see a young Christopher Reeve.
Yes.
Just in his top form, and a beautiful Jane Seymour in this beautiful setting. So I love that movie, right?
Yeah.
Another one. I'm dating myself with all my picks. I'm a big fan of Time After Time.
Yeah.
Oh, we love that movie.
I love this movie, right? H.G. Wells meets Jack the Ripper in this completely wacky story.
Directed by Nicholas Meyer. Pre Wrath of Khan.
I think it's his directorial debut, maybe. I think possibly. We'll find out.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about Wrath of Khan later today too.
Yes, right. Wrath of Khan. Then he wrote another one of those, didn't he?
7% Solution.
Yeah. So Nicholas Meyer, and has that sensibility. Yeah. This is a film that came out in 1979, which happens to be the year that I graduated from high school, which makes it very important to me. It also has an insanely comely Mary Steenburgen.
Yes, it
in this
does.
film. Oh my God, I was so hooked on her in the late 70s and early 80s. Anyway, we should move on. And then there was this little film that I didn't get a chance to talk about on the show called Time Lapse. This is a 2000, maybe 12 film.
Sure.
Neat little film, this movie. Let me set this film up for you. I want people to actually go out and get this, right? Danielle Pennebaker is in it. I can't remember who the other actors are, but it's a neat little movie. You have this guy, this couple, and they live in this cottage that's across from another cottage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the other cottage, there's this professor who has died. He has built this contraption, and this contraption is pointing out of the window of his cottage directly at the window of the couple's cottage, right? So through that contraption, which is kind of like a camera, he can see their front window and everything that happens in the front room of their cottage, right? And this contraption takes a photograph of the thing that will happen in that front room of the next day at exactly the same time every day. And through a whole bunch of machinations, this young couple comes to know about this man and this machine. So they can see what's going to happen in their room the next day at the exact... Dude, this is a very clever storyline.
It's a very smart film, especially a way of doing a time travel film that is all set in one very constrained location with a very limited cast.
It's nothing but people coming in and out of more or less these 2 or 3 spaces and falling under the influence of knowing about this machine and what that means, and it just ties it up in a nice little type thing. Time Lapse is the name of the film. What's that guy's name? Bradley King is the director.
Yep.
And the
Good
writers
little film.
are Bradley and a guy named B.P. Cooper. Neat little movie. I like the little ones like that, dude.
All right, now here are mine, and I will make this really quick. My time travel film selections are a little more eccentric. I mean, obviously, yes, I love Back to the Future and the original Time Machine, George Powell, which we have to make mention of, and sure. But here are the ones people don't typically think of as time travel movies: Time Bandits.
Indeed.
Terry Gilliam, really interesting movie. Not really a time machine. It's more kind of
metaphysical time travel.
Metaphysical, magical Terry Gilliam time travel. And you're not really you're sort of traveling between fantasy universes in a sense, but still, it's a time travel movie. Groundhog Day.
Oh yeah,
right. Because you're reliving the same day over and over.
He's in that loop.
It's in a loop. So you're not going into the past or the future in the conventional sense, but you're caught in a loop, which is wonderful. Slaughterhouse-5.
Oh, yes, Billy Pilgrim.
He becomes unstuck in time as he types, which I think is, George Roy Hill directs the daylights out of that movie. I just think that is a funky, weird, totally fantastical movie, and I love it on every conceivable level.
One of the better adaptations of Vonnegut.
Yeah, and it's an almost unadaptable novel, but they made a cool movie out of it. They did. And then lastly, the one and only time travel movie ever made by Woody Allen, Midnight in Paris. I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, well, fine. Mark, with that, pass the microphone to Mark. Let him tell us.
You took away my Midnight in Paris.
I'm sorry.
I don't like you anymore. I'm going to say, I'm going to be a little stinker and say the episode of The Twilight Zone, No Time Like the Past, where Dana Andrews, right, the famous film noir actor, goes back in time and tries to stop the sinking of the Lusitania, and he tries to stop Adolf Hitler. And then when he can't do that, he decides just to go back in time one more time and just live this idyllic life during a simpler time. But even that has its complications. It was also one of the rare, there was a group of Twilight Zone episodes that were an hour long. Mostly they were half an hour. And this was one of them. And I just think it's a terrific story. It's so poignant and so well acted. It was just really terrific. Other time travel movies I liked, I can't say favorites, since so many of these are great films, and I can't say Star Trek or Terminator. I would say Looper.
Oh, yeah.
I would say 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
Not the TV show.
Yeah, but the TV show is good, too.
TV show is good, too.
Very good.
of course. That was one of the
That's right.
films that I talked about.
Yeah.
Now, could I say Midnight in Paris again?
Sure.
Midnight in Paris.
Okay, good. Very good.
I'm going to toss in one more just for the heck of it, because I want to talk about television.
Yeah.
An excellent episode of The X-Files, right? It's called Monday.
Yeah.
14th episode, 6th season of The X-Files. It takes place at a bank robbery. It opens with Mulder already shot and bleeding out.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic, very tightly woven little episode of television.
I think if we're talking time travel on TV, for me, Time Tunnel, the old Irwin Allen show.
Oh, so much fun! Except for the way they got into that time tunnel.
Yeah.
They just sort of.
But But I don't know that time travel has ever been handled more intelligently in a movie or on television than in City on the Edge of Forever, Harlan Ellison's Star Trek episode. And I know Mark, you didn't want us to geek out on Star Trek, but it is.
I just said the movies. The TV shows.
But that is an amazing episode, and Ellison has sort of, he's been cocky about that for a long time, but it deservedly is, because there is that philosophical element that the time machine itself, which is this weird, archaic-looking ruin on this remote planet, or planetoid, as it were, is not just a device for going back and forward in time, but it's a teaching device, right? The Guardian of Forever is there to sort of to mentor you through all of these issues that time travel is somehow a conduit to learning what you should and shouldn't do, which of course is what they learned. It's like if you had the chance to go back and change history by saving the life of Edith Keeler, would you do it? And is there anyone who does not remember Kirk holding McCoy back, and you hear that car hit her in the background, and you look at the expression on DeForest Kelly's face? Jim, what have you done? Well, come on.
Young, beautiful Joan Collins, that was.
Yes. I mean, that moment, the two of them in love with the same woman, and yet sacrificing her for the sake of the future. I mean, that concept has never been brought home so forcefully as in that moment. That is a great episode.
Nerd.
Yeah. Good one.
Okay,
good one.
fine.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you, sir.
For
You
allowing
going to
me to
stick
talk
around and talk
I'm
about a
gonna
few more
hang around.
things?
I'm gonna hang
All
around.
right.
Stick around because we have a very important question to ask you later
Okay.
in the show.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes. Oh, that's right. So,
We'll
Mark,
do later.
would you please speak into the microphone?
Well, okay.
So, yeah,
So-
let's ask the question right now. Get it off.
Now, last week we had a little conversation
Yes, we did.
about now which Blu-ray was this for?
Oh, that was for Cloverfield Lane. 10
Okay.
Cloverfield Lane.
Cloverfield Lane. Now, Tim, you're going to want to participate in this because we have a bet based on your reaction.
Okay.
10 Cloverfield Lane came out on Blu-ray, a film that was surprisingly good. I enjoyed thoroughly. And this little baggie that has a couple of puzzle pieces that have to do with the movie came with the Blu-ray, right?
Came with the Blu-ray.
Came with the Blu-ray.
Yes.
And so we're talking about these two or three, whatever it is, two-piece, only three? Not that cheap. Just give us the whole damn puzzle.
Okay.
We're talking about these three puzzle pieces in the Ziploc bag that came with the 10 Cloverfield Lane Blu-ray. And Wade referred to it as a certain thing. I know it as swag. They usually send you little pieces of swag like a hat or a pen or something, and here it's just three puzzle pieces. But Wade had another name for it that he claims is what everybody in the industry calls swag, but I had never heard of it in the history of my life. I don't know what he was talking about. To me, this is swag. It's always been swag. It's a pen. It's a sweater. It's a zip drive. It's called swag. Wade, I want you to tell Tim what you thought this was called. Not swag. It's something else. And then Tim, who's going to be honest with us, you're going to say whether you have ever heard of stuff like this.
I have heard the term swag before. Swag is the term that I am familiar with. Swag is at the moment the term that I am familiar with. I know that term.
I called it a persuasion.
No. Never heard that before.
Yes!
It is a persuasion, but no, I've never heard that before. Never heard that
Okay.
before. By the
All
way, that come in every Blu-ray that everyone will
No.
get? Or
That's just
fancy
a
people.
press thing. A press
Okay,
thing.
no, Tim, no one cares about that.
Yeah,
Nobody
swag.
knows what a persuasion is. Have you? Wait, let's
Okay.
relive this.
Okay.
Tim, have you ever heard of this being called a persuasion?
No, I have to say no.
Okay.
I have to say no.
All right, fine.
I have a second. Tim, have you ever heard of this being called a persuasion?
Still no. I took a class in
fine.
grad school called
Fine.
Persuasion.
All right, fine.
Thank
I
you,
will-
thank you,
I
Tim.
will
My
bring-
work here is done.
I will bring supporting evidence in the future.
What the hell
On my
does the puzzle pieces
cross-examination.
make, guys? Did you take them out of the bag?
No, we did not.
We don't even give a damn.
Well,
what the puzzle pieces make.
it relates to the film, and it's a giveaway, and I don't think we want to get into it. But here, I'll
lamest thing to ever give away.
Yeah, it's incredibly lame. Here, hold on, I'll do
Well,
a thing.
actually, I didn't see Tim Cloverfield Lane. I didn't see it.
Hold on.
You
Okay,
host the
fine.
show.
Okay,
You
fine.
have to put the face.
So anyway, carrying on. All right, we're going to talk about some new movies real quickly. Tim, you are perfect to talk about this because Night of Cups, the Terrence Malick film, which is on Blu-ray. and which has only one special feature, the making of Knight of Cups. So you better like the movie because there's no extras on this thing. Yeah. So you and I saw this together, and we talked about it on radio.
Yeah, and
so we're going to cut Mark out of this equation.
It was a very interesting conversation for us, a very interesting moment in time. Knight of Cups, not critically loved by anybody except maybe me and you.
Yeah, well, because we identified it as the conclusion to a trilogy that Malick is making about his life that began with Tree of Life and continued with To the Wonder.
A very introspective trilogy, which is much more deeply woven than I had thought before. You know, I beat up what was the middle movie?
To the Wonder.
To the Wonder. I beat that movie up pretty good.
You and I saw all three of these
all
together.
All three together. Tree of Life being the first one, of course. Which we both loved roundly. To the Wonder is a movie that I beat up pretty good, but I didn't really understand what was going on when I saw that movie. Thinking about that movie in the context of this trilogy, what is plainly a trilogy, and whose characters are whom, and who they represent: his father, his mother, his brother, his teachers, philosophy, and all. Now I understand what's actually going on in Tree of Life, To the Wonder.
Yeah, and I mean, for those who don't know, Malick basically made Tree of Life about his childhood. In which case, you see this family, this tough father, and he's one of these brothers, and there's a brother that passes away, and two other brothers survive, and then into The Wonder, it's about his relationships, his broken marriage, and meeting
his own failures there,
his own failures in his marriages. And then this is about the grown, I mean, in a very loose way, the grown Terrence Malick, now played by Christian Bale. He went from the present and future Batman, Ben Affleck, to the past and recent Batman, Christian Bale, playing a screenwriter who is loosely based on Malick, who again has a brother and another brother who's deceased, and Brian Dennehy plays the hardcore dad, and Wes Bentley plays the other brother, and suddenly you realize these are all these same family dynamics carrying through these same three films,
and recriminations where they belong all the way around. Yeah. Most of which though are directed toward the character that more or less represents him. And what I like about this series of films is that if there's any judgment in these films, they're all self-judgments. Yeah. He's what he's really doing is looking at Terrence Malick and saying, man, I've had some successes, but boy, have I failed. Yeah. in some amazing and astounding ways. And judgments I've made, and I've blamed my dad, and I've blamed my brother, and my brother was a better person than me.
And it's done in that.
I blame my wives, and I blame my children. And
it's done in that rehearsal, almost semi-improvised style. Lots of really, really fluid camera work by Emmanuel Lubezki, who's now won 3 consecutive Oscars. I think it's, if you've seen the other 2 films, I think it makes a lot more sense. If you expect it to stand alone on its own, you're probably not going to get as much out of it. But beautiful meditative movie. We both really, really like it a lot.
And what did you say? Nothing else on that? It's the movie.
It's a featurette.
Featurette. Okay.
Featurette where you don't actually see Malick because he doesn't allow himself to be photographed. So it's not much. It's really not much of a.
A lot of people don't care for Terrence Malick.
I know it's an acquired taste for sure. It is indeed for sure. So anyway, all right, Mark. Shall we? Mark.
Where's Mark?
Yeah, Mark.
I told you, there he is.
Mark's doing his. He's taking a pause.
I must. Brothers Grimsby is what Mark has there. I got to tell you, I'm about the only film critic on the planet that liked that movie.
Really, this movie was junk. Talk about it.
This movie was actually very, very bright. It's very different than what Sacha Baron Cohen had been doing in all of those other films. When you watch this movie, what you will see is Sacha Baron making fun of Sacha Baron. He is the butt of all of the jokes in this movie. And this movie has something to say about all kinds of little things, little foibles that we have in society. This movie has something to say about the way that we treat fat people or unattractive people. This movie has something to say about homophobia. This movie has something to say about all kinds of little things. Gun culture in America. This movie is absolutely hysterical in its treatment of gun culture in America. And another thing, Mark Strong, the other guy on the cover here who nobody ever talks about, Mark is a really wonderful actor. And just throws himself into this perfectly ludicrous movie. Whole hog. He does not pull back. Even when they are in the elephant's vagina, he does not pull back.
Oh, that's too funny. Anyway. Too funny. Brilliant. So anyway, that's the Brothers Grimsby. And Mark, do you have anything to add to Brothers Grimsby? I have not seen it, so I'm going to take
no,
Tim's.
there's way too much anal cavity jokes to really make me laugh.
Okay.
Brothers Grimsby.
All right, well, fine, so be it.
You know what? Sacha Baron Cohen, that guy's got to figure out what to do because he fell out of the Freddie Mercury film, right? And now he's doing anal cavity movies that only Tim Cogshell likes.
Yeah.
And he's got to figure out what he's going to do with himself.
All right, fine. So
By the way, these three pieces of the puzzle, look, they do fit together.
They do fit together, yes, of course they do. But the point is not that they make a picture. That it's that whole jigsaw thing that's going on in Cloverfield, which is, if you see the movie, you understand. All right, let's get into some classics here. We got some Criterions, we got some Kino Lorber stuff. So let me just knock out a couple of culty films first. We've got the uncensored director-approved edition of Sorceress, which is one of the most wonderful, cheesy things you have ever seen. This is from Synapse. Comes in a nice black, lurid DVD keep case, Blu-ray keep case. This is the kind of thing that Linda Blair would go on to make after The Exorcist when her career completely disintegrated. Everyone expected her to become a legit actress, and she just went on and basically made a whole bunch of exploitation stuff where she took her top off, and a lot of it sort of had loose connection to The Exorcist in any case. This is a Blu-ray. Again, the uncensored director-approved edition. Directed by Jim Wynorski in 1995, which is pretty late for these kinds of films. Wynorski, of course, did a lot of exploitation stuff, primarily an 80s filmmaker in that regard. But this is just one of those silly occulty movies that really makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, other than the fact that it has a lot of nudity and some topless women and a little bit of gore and titillation, and there it is. Wynorski does the audio commentary track, and there's also an additional commentary track that he does with Tom Savini, who did all the gore makeup and thing. And then in addition to Linda Blair, you also get Michael Parks and the lovely Julie Strain, who also made quite a career being copiously naked. And then in addition to that, from the Redemption line over at Kino is Crimson, starring Paul Naschy, who is for a long time a huge exploitation star. This is directed by Juan Fortuny, with whom I am utterly unfamiliar. And you also, if Crimson is not enough for you, you can also get the alternate European cut of Crimson, which probably tells you more about the movie. The alternate European cut is entitled The Man with the Severed Head.
What?
That's right, The Man with the Severed Head. So, if Crimson is a little bit too obscure for you and you don't really know what you go, well, what's it about? Well, the European version is called The Man with the Severed Head. That's a little bit like if, the U.S. release of, Star Wars was Star Wars, and then internationally it was the movie about the Death Star thing that gets blown up.
No, that's what they call it in Japan.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Well, I am not speaking into the microphone because what if Tim would like to say something?
Oh, well,
what do I
true.
do?
You speak into the
We only have
microphone.
two mics, Wade.
Anyway, this is one of those brain replacement movies. It's much worse than They Saved Hitler's Brain. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It is preposterous on every conceivable level, but it has sort of a cool cheese factor made in 1973, a European production, Spanish, French, a lot of European money in this. It's an absolutely silly film, but from an exploitation level, it is enjoyable in a really kitsch way. So that is Crimson, starring Paul Naschy, otherwise known as the Man with the Severed Head. All right, Mark, tell us what we got on Criterion this week.
Oh, do we have some cool Criterion stuff for you this week? In fact, I will take a couple, and because Tim Cogshell's here, he will take a couple too. What do you think of that?
Okay.
1973, we have the absolutely surreal, strange, wonderful political allegory, Fantastic Planet. Imagine if, I don't know how to put this. Imagine if the animation from Monty Python was told to tell a serious story.
Yeah.
It looks like the animation from Monty Python.
This has been on DVD twice previously. Both of them, welcome on DVD because it's such a hard film to find. But neither was a really terrific transfer. I think everybody was sort of willing to suck it up and live with the previous DVDs just because they were there. And most people I know who got one got the other. So I know a lot of people who actually have both DVDs because the extras are a little different and there was just no they couldn't live to part with either one of them because they didn't know when the film might come around again. Well, I think you can part with those DVDs now because this is a great Blu-ray set.
Yeah, this is again. It's a French film. It is. It's surreal and it's trippy and it's psychedelic and it takes place on this planet, distant planet, where humans are enslaved by these giant blue people, and then one of the humans who had been raised as a pet from childhood escapes, and then winds up with a band of these kind of crazy radical separatist types. And it really cannot be explained. It needs to be seen to be believed. It's from 1973. It's only 72 minutes, and that's about all you can take of something so trippy and so strange. And, of course, Criterion has done the best they can on the Blu-ray. It's a 2K digital restoration. But, again, this is a 1973 film, so how good will it ever get? A couple short films by the director, a documentary on the director. And, yeah, it's really interesting stuff. Fantastic Planet is completely worth a rental just to see what it'll be like if a Monty Python animation was used to tell a political allegory about racism.
Awesome.
We also have, by the way, another terrific film. If you've, I'm sure you haven't, but there was a film, I think it was in the early 80s called Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty. And Heaven Can Wait is Heaven Can Wait available on Blu-ray?
Ooh, Heaven Can Wait, I believe, is going...
it's kind of not, right? Actually, maybe Heaven Can Wait was 70... Heaven Can Wait was like the late 70s.
I want to say Heaven Can Wait is supposed to be coming out from Criterion, but I might be confusing it with what you're holding in your hand right now.
That is right. And Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty, a great film. Everyone loved it. It was directed by Warren Beatty and Buck Henry. Very beloved for its time. That film is actually based on another film, an earlier film from 1941 called Here Comes Mr. Jordan.
Heaven Can Wait is only available... Heaven Can Wait was released from Paramount originally on DVD, and then it was released again on DVD in a Criterion... no, that's a different Heaven Can Wait, so never mind, I take it back.
Now there was a Heaven Can Wait with Gene Tierney.
That's the
and Don
1943.
Ameche, yeah.
That's the 1943. That's what's on Criterion. That's what was confusing me. So, yes.
Am I crazy or isn't that Steven Spielberg film from the 80s, Always?
Always is based on...
that's right.
That's based on a guy named Joe. Guy named Joe. That was when you look at Here Comes Mr. Jordan, a guy named Joe, Angels in the Outfield, even It's a Wonderful Life. That was the thing in the 1930s and 40s. Like every other movie had some angel helping somebody out. And if you think about it, well, like Nazism and fascism and communism and World War II and the Great Depression, damn well needed an angel back then. So I think everybody wanted to feel like there was somebody on the other side looking out for them because the world was just a horrible place.
It's a Wonderful Life. That had an angel.
I just said that.
Oh, I was listening to your ugly face. Anyway, Here Comes Mr. Jordan from 1941. It's Robert Montgomery. He plays a boxer. Now in the Warren Beatty film, he was a football player. But he plays a boxer, and his plane crashes in a crazy accident. But instead of going to heaven, he is returned to Earth thanks to an angel named Mr. Jordan, played by Claude Rains, who everybody knows more as the Invisible Man. And it's a terrific little comedy, a lot of fun. This thing, Criterion has done a good job on this as well. 2K digital restoration. There's a conversation between critic Michael Sragow, who is a member of the LA Film Critics Association, and one of the other filmmakers. And there's a Lux Radio Theater adaptation from 1942 starring Cary Grant, which is definitely very cool. And I think you'll like this a lot. This is a cute movie. It's not really that dated. It's funny because the Warren Beatty one is almost a little more dated. The Warren Beatty one is a little more.
He plays a football player, not a boxer.
It's a little more screwball comedy, I think, than Heaven Can Wait than Here Comes Mr. Jordan is. But I like this film a lot.
It's good. It's really, really good.
And then actually, Tim's going to do one of them.
Yay!
Oh yeah. Why? Because it's the fancy film in the bunch. That's why.
La Chienne.
And Jean Renoir. It's an absolutely beautiful film. I like this film. 1931, this film is made, right?
Yeah.
This film is about a guy. He's a married guy. He falls in love with this chick. Her name is Lulu. Lulu turns out to be a hooker, and she has this pimp named Dee Dee, and she's really just working this guy to get money for her pimp. This is like some edgy stuff, dude.
It is.
I don't think you could make this film this straight today.
You probably could.
As they did in 1931. Plus, Jean Renoir, an absolutely wonderful filmmaker, and it's in that sort of moody sort of tone that he always sort of
Good stuff.
So check that out for sure. This thing, let's see. I'm trying to see if it has anything interesting on it. No, I'm afraid it does not. Actually, it is a 4K digital transfer, and it does have an introduction. by Jean Renoir, 1961 introduction. So
nice.
Yeah, which is neat because I was born in 1961, so that makes it good.
Fantabulous.
Renoir, by the way, is one of the unsung greats
He is.
of film. I mean, because this is 1931, so it's like the early sound era.
Well, when your
Yeah.
dad's
And then-
the other guy, you know.
I know. When you're and Renoir's father was the painter.
Auguste Renoir,
Auguste
the
Renoir.
great painter. Yeah.
A couple years later, next year, he'd made Baudu Saved from Drowning, which Criterion had released on
That's
DVD.
right.
And of course, he would later make The Rules of the Game, which for a long time was considered like the best film ever made in that Sight and Sound poll,
Yeah.
right? And he was amazing. Grand Illusion, of course, from 1937, one of the all-time great anti-war films. So, Jean Renoir is the man.
All right, and then from Full Moon Features, who's releasing a lot of Blu-rays now, there is H.P. Lovecraft's Lurking Fear, which is a weird kind of occult film. Obviously, I've never read the original Lurking Fear, but this is from the 80s, and it's like 84, I believe it is. And the idea basically is you got a guy played by Blake Bailey, who's been doing time in prison. He didn't commit the crime, but he comes out, and his family, including like a really weird Vincent Schiavelli, who's always a weird dude, especially in Ghost. Remember him in Ghost? He was all creepy and
Sure.
weird.
He reminds me of. He always reminds me of Richard Libertini.
A little bit, except he's like, Richard's a nice guy, and Vincent Schiavelli's kind of a creepy dude.
No, but they're both like tall, lanky.
Have you ever
a
seen
little-
Vincent Schiavelli around town, though? He
Oh,
drives
who
like
hasn't?
Well, he drives like an old classic car from like the 30s or 40s, and he's always kind of decked out in some weird kind of scarves and berets and things like that.
Vincent Schiavelli, the day that the 1992 riots broke out
Yeah,
here in Los
92.
Angeles,
I was in Paris.
I was interviewing Vincent Schiavelli on the roof of his house in West Hollywood. His
No
apartment.
kidding.
He lived in the Fauntleroy. Or what's
Yeah.
the name? What's the name of that fancy building right there on Rossmore? Yeah, right there. He lives.
Oh, yeah.
That's where he lived in 1992. Anyway, and for whatever reason, we had went up to the roof. He was in Batman. I guess it was
Oh, that's
the
right.
Batman
Yes.
sequel.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing him for Entertainment Today magazine that you and I work for. A feature. I was writing a feature, and we're sitting there, and Vincent Schiavelli looks over my shoulder and he says, "What's that?" And I looked back and I said, "It looks like a fire. I don't know. It looks like it." And he says, "Well, then what's that?" And I looked over, and it's like another fire that was bigger than the first fire. And we went to his apartment and turned on the news, and
No
we realized
kidding.
that the city was on fire.
Wow.
So that's my Vincent Schiavelli story.
I was in Paris taking meetings and skirting around. And I got back to the friend that we were staying with, an old friend of my father's, and she looks at me, and this lovely old lady, and she said, "Oh, things are really bad back at your place." And I'm like, "Really? Did my mother drop something? What happened?" She turns the TV on, and all I saw was just riots, and I just thought. Oh, and then I remembered Rodney King, and then I'd completely forgotten that was going on. I'd been in Paris for about a week, and I was on my way to Cannes, and I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" Yeah, I remember it well. Well, anyway,
Vincent Schiavelli, there you go.
that Vincent Schiavelli just reminded us of the riots. So anyway, Schiavelli is probably the best thing in this. Lurking Fear, H.P. Lovecraft's Lurking Fear on Blu-ray. Basically about a guy who gets out of prison, and he, his illicit family and other connections, they want him to go and dig up some money that his dad had stolen and buried in a cemetery. Unfortunately, it's a cemetery that is populated by cannibals who live in tunnels underneath. And you know what? That's the worst thing. I hate it when that happens to a cemetery. It's like we got a couple of them here in L.A. Cannibals in the tunnels underneath. It's such a problem.
So it's a documentary?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can get them out. You can call Orkin. They have like they have a treatment for cannibals. It's like what they do for gophers, except it's more powerful.
Now wait a second. Now we've gone through the vampire cycle.
Yeah.
We're now currently in the zombie cycle,
Yes,
right? Maybe next will be cannibals.
I think so. I think we need more
Or
cannibal
werewolves.
Where we've done werewolves. It was
Although
like-
Universal's starting to remake all their Universal's going to remake all their old classic
I
horror
know they
films.
are.
They got Tom Cruise starring in
The Mummy.
The Mummy.
Yeah, big deal. Okay. So, last classic of the week before we dive into a few other. Well, we got some Star Trek stuff to talk about.
Nerd.
Yeah. Andrew McLaughlin, who did tons of westerns way back when, one of those workman-like guys, primarily in the 60s. He had a late-stage western in 1971. This is out on Blu-ray from Keanu Lorber, with the enviable cast of Brian Keith and Dean Martin, two guys you always want to have in a western.
I like Brian Keith.
It's called Something Big. It's a movie called Something Big. And
By the way, why is there a Keith David and a David Keith? Why don't you IMDb that? There's a Keith David and
Yes.
a David Keith,
I know that.
right?
Yes. Right?
Tim, back me up.
Another hole in the time-space continuum. Here's the interesting question. Do you know which one's black and which one's white?
Keith David is black.
Yes.
I have no idea which one is which.
Keith David. Yes, Keith David's the black guy who is also the dad, as it is in Something About Mary.
Right,
Yes,
sure.
He's in the thing.
He's in the thing.
Yeah, in the thing.
And he has that.
He survives the thing. He's one of the only two guys who survives the movie.
And he has that amazing voice. He narrates a lot of commercials. He's got a great voice. And then David Keith is.
Officer in the Gentleman.
Yeah, there you go. So,
But Keith David was also in The Nice Guys, I believe. He was in The Nice Guys.
Oh, yes, he was. That's right. Yes, he is.
And
He's
by
in The
the
Nice
way,
Guys.
can I say-
he gets shot in The Nice Guys.
In the hot tub or something.
Yeah.
Can I say something about The Nice Guys?
I love that movie.
I do love much of that movie. It's a little much after a while. But here's the thing. It annoyed me that the film tanked because everybody's complaining that the studios only make sequels and tentpole films. And here's Warner Brothers putting a decent amount of money behind a film that is original, bit of a throwback, but original, and a star vehicle, and it tanks. And all that does, it just makes Warner Brothers hunker down even more.
I'm going to make a prediction. First of all, it was R-rated. I don't think they handled it quite as well as they should have. I also think it was not released at the right time. I think a film like that, you don't release that film now. You release that film in October. You know what I mean? You release it in October and you platform it a little bit and you let it sort of build a reputation and then become a must-see thing. But I'm also going to predict that it's going to do really, really well on DVD and Blu-ray. I think it's going to do really well in ancillary markets. I think well enough that we may get a second one because they set it up for another one, and I really want to see those guys do another one.
It all depends on how much it costs in the first place.
It was expensive. They spent a pile. I mean, that's got a lot of car crashes and there's real effects in that thing. So anyway, something big, kind of a silly western. It's 1971 is getting pretty late for the western era, and everybody's kind of trying to keep up, and everybody's getting a little long in the tooth. And yeah, there's some fun action in this thing, and Dean Martin's a little bit funny and sly, and they got a nice little thing going on between them, Brian Keith and Dean Martin. But it is definitely everybody's sort of trying to hang on to a genre that is long past, especially considering that the music and the songs come to us courtesy of, mind you, this is a western with music and songs courtesy of Marvin Hamlish, Burt Bacharach, and Hal David.
Oh, come on. Raindrops keep falling on my head?
Totally inappropriate to that movie, but we love it because we still love the movie in spite of the song, not because of the song. You know that.
Yeah, that is true.
Yes. Okay, so Marvin Hamlish, Burt Bacharach, Hal David, not exactly what I associate with westerns, but nonetheless, it's an okay film.
Wade's a hater.
All right, Mark, we've got a nerd moment here.
What is that over there? Let me show me that. The big one.
The big one.
And when I say show me the big one, that is not sexual in any way.
Thank you.
Tim, take over the mic.
Okay.
All right, I've got the mic.
So we're going to talk now about Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan Director's Cut, which I don't think is any better than the regular cut. I really am not a fan of Wrath of Khan at all, as we know on this show, but Mark loves it. But I made an issue. As soon as this arrived, I posted a picture on the Facebook page to underline the fact that I think this is the worst cover I have ever seen on any Blu-ray ever. Mark, this is one of those Mondo things. Okay, so
it's lame.
Black, white, and red pastiche of characters from the film. Drawing,
not a fan on any level whatsoever. But Kevin Haub, listener on the Facebook page, went and got some of the original Bob Peak artwork, and he did a cover that I am now going to replace it with.
Oh, wow.
Thank you,
Look
Kevin.
at that.
See? Isn't that great? Thank you, Kevin. So the original Bob Peak artwork, which is just wonderful, and Bob Peak, of course, one of the legendary poster artists of all time, going all the way back to Funny Girl and My Fair Lady and Excalibur and Apocalypse Now, all of which, by the way, they had a Bob Peak exhibit about a year and a half ago at Pepperdine University, which I went to, and I stood next to the original drawings of a lot of that stuff. And you look at the original artwork for Apocalypse Now with Brando's face and all the red and all of that, or the Excalibur artwork or Star Trek the Motion Picture, it's amazing. That guy was an artist par excellence. So that's the artwork that should be there. So thank you, Kevin. You saved the Blu-ray. As to the director's cut itself, what can I say? Got a lot of stuff, the director's cut and the theatrical version. Nicholas Meyer does commentaries.
Nicholas Meyer comes up again.
There he is. He does commentaries on both. He also does a commentary on the theatrical version along with Manny Cotto. There's a text commentary from Michael and Denise Okuda, who do all of those really cool technical books on Star Trek stuff. And then there's a library computer and a thing on the Genesis effect and the effects and lots of. I mean, there are probably a dozen different featurettes on here, almost all of which are in HD. There are storyboards. There's a tribute to Ricardo Montalban. It is just as jam packed with stuff. But let's be honest, the difference between the director's cut and the theatrical cut. Very few cuts, and in running time, 3 minutes. That's it. It's not
Which
like
one's longer? That's
the director's cut. The
Director's
director's cut.
And that's more that kid. Who's the kid who dies?
Oh,
Pepper Peterman. What was his name? Was Pepper?
Pepper
Who was the
Peterman.
kid who died? I forgot his name. He was the young ass.
Pepper Peterman.
I don't remember this. He was the. This is Peter Parker. What? Don't stop the recording.
No, I'm not going to. You're talking about what's his face?
That kid who dies, and the little kid. Where was it?
Little kid.
Oh, Peter Preston.
What?
There was a kid.
What are you talking about?
Yes, there was a kid, Peter Preston. He played like the young ensign.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
he played the young ensign who
yeah.
dies during the movie.
Ike
And the director's cut
Eisenman.
is more of this kid.
Ike Eisenman from Escape to Witch Mountain, who's now
Yes.
like an attorney or something. He's not even in the business
That's
anymore.
right. He played the kid in
Yeah.
Khan, who dies.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Okay.
Peter Parker.
All
What else
right.
was
Peter Preston or something.
Peter Preston.
Yeah.
Peter Preston reported
For a second, I was thinking, are you talking about Kirk's kid? Because he's grown up, played by Merritt Buttrick.
Who has since passed away.
He was since passed away. That's what I thought you were talking about. Because
No.
Merritt Buttrick,
How dare
who
you.
I met once when he was on Square Pegs.
Oh,
He was on Square Pegs.
stupid show. Square pegs.
So all right, so that's Wrath of Khan, and then I have to grudgingly recommend it because it's like if you're a completist or whatever. And then the rest of the stuff we got they have not gotten us the Blu-ray set of the complete Blu-ray set of Next Generation. We're hoping that'll arrive soon, but we do.
I already own that, by the way, because I got the UK version.
Oh, that's right.
So I've been enjoying that for a while now.
Well, they sent us the original series on Blu-ray, which is nice now in a nice jam-packed, very tight and compact, complete set.
And by the way, can I say something about this?
Yeah.
A couple things. First of all, there is no difference between this one and the previous one. It's just a
know.
nicer, tighter package. And
Yes.
also, for those who are complaining that these are not widescreen, this was 1966, 67, 68, whatever.
Yeah.
They did not make television in widescreen back
No,
then.
they did not.
And by the way, also, the Next Generation is also not widescreen.
Well, it is at a certain point.
Yes.
It's like third season, fourth season.
But
when
initially
switches
it was
over.
not.
Initially it was not. Yeah, it switches over at a certain point. That
Now-
was one of those transitional shows.
Now, I am one of those people who likes the original series with the enhanced visual effects. I know it's not canonical. It's not the
No,
original.
I don't like it.
I like it.
No,
I just do because I think they did.
not appropriate.
I really don't disagree, but I have to say this: they did just enough to improve the effects, but didn't go overboard.
It feels like Hardware Wars, the special edition. Did you watch Hardware Wars, the special edition with all the CGI? It's ridiculous.
I have that DVD.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
best.
it's absurd. By the way, there's another documentary that I'm talking about on Film Week this week, which is all about the Indiana Jones fan film. The guys that made it. You aware of that thing?
Of course.
That feature. Yeah. That's actually that. I hated that documentary for a half an hour because what they did is they all came together like 30 years later to shoot the one scene with the airplane that they were not able to shoot in the original one. They're spending tens of thousands of dollars, these guys, to fulfill a dream from when they were 11 years old. And I'm thinking, okay, you're a bunch of indulgent, overgrown losers. You're risking your jobs and everything to complete. I mean, why are you doing this? And then it gets interesting. So I will say, then the film won me over. So very interesting film. Anyway, completing our Star Trek coverage today, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek and then its sequel, Star Trek Into Darkness, are both out in 4K Ultra HD editions with 4K Blu-ray, regular Blu-ray, and then, of course, the ultraviolet digital HD version. And loaded with extras, all the stuff that the previous ones had. Commentary by JJ and Brian Burke, who I have known for. It's just weird. It's weird hearing Brian. on a
You
commentary.
introduced Brian Burke to JJ.
No, I introduced Brian to Matt, and Matt introduced him to JJ.
Got it.
That's how that worked. Because honestly, JJ would know you on the street. He wouldn't know me. He's met me like half a dozen times, but I'm always like one of those guys who's just loitering around Matt's films. I'm not that important. Anyway, so many featurettes, it'll make your head explode. Gag reels and deleted scenes and all that stuff. I'm not a fan of either of these films, to be honest. I do not consider them canon. They belong really. They're closer to the Star Wars films. They're part of JJ's canon. They're not part of Star Trek canon. But the bottom line here is the Ultra HD, which is passable. I got to say, this doesn't look like they really took a great deal of time to maximize. Clearly, they mastered these things in 4K. The digital files were there, and then I think they just flat out transferred it and compressed it a little bit for 4K for UHD Blu-ray format to just codec to codec. But it doesn't look like there was a lot of work or special attention made to sort of maximize it and master it accordingly. I think they just wanted to get these things out because there's another Star Trek movie on the horizon, and let's sell as much of our stock as we can, and see if we can generate a little pre-release buzz. I think it's a marketing decision, so I would not necessarily recommend these. I think a better version is probably down the line somewhere. And if you have a Blu-ray, the upconverted Blu-ray is going to look just as well. So I do not recommend a double dip of these two films.
Well, I got to say, Paramount has really been shanking this whole 50th anniversary of Star Trek.
They have.
There's something it has the feeling of like they weren't going to do anything. Then when people complained, they just scrambled and put together this and that. There's no celebrations. There's no I don't. Maybe at this point there'll be a special on CBS. I have no idea, but it just seems like. And you know what? I got to say, in a year when sequels are tanking, you've got Star Trek Beyond, which already has one foot in the grave because that horrible trailer that everybody hated. Now they
tried to fix it.
They fixed it with a better trailer, but I mean, it's still the damage is done. I'm not really thinking this is like a.
I don't know if
I think Independence Day might do better than Star Trek Beyond.
I'm so looking forward to Independence Day.
It's gonna be good.
I'm so looking forward to it, Tim. You got to be on board.
I'm looking forward to this. Is my only problem with the notion. First, about the Star Trek thing. Who did we lose? We lost Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Most recently.
Yeah.
McCoy is gone.
Yeah.
Scotty's gone.
Yeah.
So we still got Chekhov and Zulu walking around, and of course Captain Kirk. And Michelle Nichols.
All I want is William Shatner and George Takei just trapped together in some. That's what I want.
Who has the sword?
Wait, what was that episode of the show? What was that episode of the show? I think it was "Let That Be Your Last Battlefield" or something, where like the guy who's black on one side, white on the other side.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Where at the end. They go into
Frank Gorshin is the guy,
right?
Yeah,
and then at the end, they go into some dimension where all they do is fight each other for all eternity.
No, you're confusing. You're confusing two episodes. That's the alternative factor with.
No, that's Let There Be
That Be Your Last Battlefield is the two guys from the planet who are the last two of the one's half black, one's half white on the opposite sides, right? And they're at war with each other. That was very much about racism. You are thinking about the alternative factor, where the guy with the little beard shows up, and there are two dimensions, and there are two versions of him, and they keep crossing and fighting each other in that little middle ground.
Oh, that's right. That's right. No,
Lazarus A and Lazarus B.
Yes, because Kirk goes down on the planet and he sees the crashed craft on the planet,
and he meets the other guy, and he realizes, oh, you're not the guy who's like. He goes, no, he's obsessed with me. He can't stand that I exist because we are alternate versions of each other, and then. And they're inside the thing, and they have to trap each other in there so that the other guy, and if they ever meet in either dimension, the universe will come to an end or some such nonsense. So Kirk has to blow the machine up and trap them. We are nerds, man. We are so pathetic. I cannot believe we're...
No, well, first of all, you're a bigger nerd than me because I had the episode wrong. But also, that's what I want George Takei and William Shatner. I want them to be trapped in the dimension, and they struggle for all eternity.
I want that so
You realize that Shatner's going to bury all that whole... Shatner will bury that entire cast.
Yeah, he will.
He will live longer than any of them.
You realize how good he looks for the fact that... What is he, 84 now? He looks fantastic. Yeah, he's like 84. He looks fabulous.
Yeah, it'll be him and Nichelle Nichols.
Yeah, he was born in 31. He's born in 31. I know that. Same year as my mother and my father-in-law, who have both passed on. Yeah. He's born in 31. He's a child of 31. He will be 85 this year.
And still working all the time.
And still...
He's 85... He's 85 now. He had his 85th birthday on March 22nd.
There you go.
By the way, may I just say that the two coolest people of our childhoods, Captain Kirk and Fonzie, both Jewish. Putting it out there. Who knew that the coolest guys on TV were actually Jewish?
And one's a Canadian.
There you go. Well, anyway, let's move on. We're going to talk a little British television before we wrap the show out. Tim, you are a fan of this show.
I am. I really like Grantchester. It's really a neat show set in about 1953, just outside Cambridge. And you have this guy who's the vicar of this small town. And, he ends up going around solving crimes and doing all that kind of stuff. Sort of a Miss Marple kind of thing going there. But what I like about this show is it delves into some really, really interesting sort of social constructs and conversations, including things to do with race and gender and sexuality. All very interesting stuff to have been talking about in 1953, which is when this show takes place. Plus, this guy's incredibly good looking.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
It's a really, really smart show. Really well written. Yeah, they've done it. They've done quite a number with it. And James Norton, really
James
good.
Norton.
Really
Special feature here: the making of Grantchester, the trouble with Sidney and Geordie. Anyway. A neat show. I love it when British television has the ability to do something that just doesn't happen in American television. So, for one thing, they do historical dramas.
Yeah, which I love.
Recent history as well as we don't do that here. You don't see a whole bunch of television programs set in the 50s and 60s and 30s in America. Now, why is that? I can tell you why it is.
Yeah.
Because we had a problematic culture in the 50s and 30s and 40s in America. In the UK, they had dealt with most of those issues.
Yeah.
Already. And it's not that they didn't have any issues at all, but the culture itself was built in a different way. And it's truncated a lot of the media that we have here. I would love to see some programming set in the 40s and 50s, that post-war period, maybe even the 30s here in the United States, that just dealt with all of the issues that were of the day. You know what I mean? Grantchester like it.
Absolutely. All right, so Birds of a Feather is a British sitcom that was on television over a decade ago, and it is back, apparently. I am unfamiliar with the previous incarnation of it, but it's a little bit like Absolutely Fabulous. It just keeps coming back every so often, and it's a little similar to that in some respects. It's not quite so unhinged. A couple of sisters and a good friend of theirs who all move in together, kind of odd couple style, so it's like an odd triple. And it is still very funny, and it is a smart show. Some really, really great performances from Leslie Joseph, Linda Robson, and Pauline Quirk, originally of Broadchurch. If you've ever seen Broadchurch, he's great on it. So that is set one of Birds of a Feather, the new version, the revived version that's out, and quite funny. There's also Suspects, Series 1 and Series 2 from Acorn. Which is a kind of a straight-up cop show, but really smart and quite well done. And, it's all urban crime and, the usual kind of British crime thing. It's not really exceptional, but it's on the same level as some of their best stuff. We've got Doctor Who, the Underwater Menace from the Patrick Troughton years in the mid to late 1960s. I
love Doctor. I'm a Tom Baker guy.
Yeah,
but that's okay. Patrick was a great Doctor.
He was a good Doctor.
He was a surly bastard. I just really loved him.
He was the last of the crusty, crotchety, older Doctor Who's from in the 1960s before Baker and the young guns took over.
William Hartnell kind of guy.
Yeah. So the Underwater Menace is. I mean, this is all in black and white, by the way. This is just so you're prepared for this. This is from 1967, and it all takes place in Atlantis, which is done in a really cheesy yet strange and weird and compelling way. So the Underwater Menace comes from Atlantis. We've also got Call the Midwife, Season 5. I'm amazed at how long this show keeps carrying on.
Another excellent British drama.
It is, isn't
beautifully done, cinematic in every way.
Wonderful period stuff, and all of it, I mean, here's the thing that I love most. It's got Jenny Agutter in it. And yes, just right, Jenny Agutter. Logan's Run. Jenny Agutter, who just was
She was also in something recent.
Oh, everything. Oh, but it doesn't matter. She's just wonderful. She continues to be absolutely wonderful. I don't care what age she is. I want her to keep doing stuff forever. It keeps my youth alive. Anyway, no, it's absolutely delightful. Wonderful, wonderful drama. Call the Midwife, Season 5 on Blu-ray. That's from BBC. And then
she was in Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she's one of the council people. Yeah. Detectorists is hilarious. We missed the first season of this. This is Detectorists Series 2 with Mackenzie Crook and Toby Jones, and they are just absolutely beyond hilarious. Have either of you seen the Detectorists? I've
not seen that.
This is an absolute laugh riot about a couple of guys who belong to a metal detecting club. They're looking for Saxon treasure buried somewhere in the English countryside. It's just a riot. It's an absolute hoot. The fact that, and apparently this really exists. There really are metal detecting clubs, like guys who go out with their
It'd be better to look for Roman treasure buried in the English countryside. Probably wouldn't be metal.
It might be. It might be some kind of metallurgy, Bronze Age. You could go all the way back. And then Life of Verdi from Acorn is a biography about the great Italian composer. It is one of the more interesting television biographies I think I've ever seen. It is really, really elaborate. Verdi's life is quite dramatic. I think this verges on being too long. It is 11 hours, which is quite a slog. It didn't need to be that long, but it is quite nicely put together, and for especially made in 1980, which is sort of the golden age of the miniseries when these things were trying for something a little more cinematic. You were kind of around Roots and Shogun and the Thornbirds and Centennial, and that's when all
Masada,
that stuff was happening on American television. So they were going for something a little bit more sophisticated on British television as well. So it is decent, but 11 hours in 7 episodes is quite a slog. And then lastly, The Last Panthers, which is quite a treat because you get John Hurt, and anytime John Hurt shows up in any cast, however minor, however much of a token cast member he is, it's pretty great. There's even, by the way, he's now a David Bowie theme for this series, which is really terrific. So The Last Panther is really quite a fascinating, powerful miniseries. It takes place centered around a diamond heist in the south of France. And beautifully put together. International cast. Tahar Rahim, really, really excellent in this. Samantha Morton also shows up as her usual excellent self. Fascinating. Shot in 7 different countries in 5 languages. A very, very impressive bit for television. So, 6 hours flies by with this thing. It is really, really impressive. Great miniseries. The Last Panthers on Blu-ray and on DVD, but get it on Blu-ray because it's like a movie for television. This is if we were talking British miniseries, one of the best things they've done in a very, very long time. So, John Hurt, Samantha Morton, Tahar Rahim, really, really great. The Last Panthers. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Tim, yes. And
that's what sends me back to hell.
And we wish you well with your bit for John Raby. Mark, we will.
You wish me well for anything? No.
Well, you got a date, don't you?
I have a date tonight.
Well, good. I hope it goes well.
It really does.
Okay.